Business has to be at the forefront of this responsible tax discussion. In any other area of ethics, whether it's sound sourcing or sustainable fish or humane food, business, a vanguard of progressive businesses have come to the forefront and have said, we're going to go above and beyond legislation. They've shown what's possible. And what that demonstrates is that not every business is out there, they're not at it, they're not tax dodging, they're not tax avoiding. There's a group of businesses who can show what's possible. Then in time, legislation needs to catch up with those vanguard of businesses, and then they move on again, and then the legislation catches on again. And that type of virtuous progress is what we believe is needed right now, and that's what we've got finally with the fair tax mark. I mean, what was a bit peculiar, which is that tax avoidance is the #1 corporate responsibility issue in the UK for a number of years now, yet there was no certification scheme for businesses who were progressive on it. There were certification schemes for virtually everything else out there, but not tax. And that's why we established the fair tax mark. It was probably long overdue. There's 3 areas for us where the fair tax mark awards points, to put it bluntly. And one is tax policy. Businesses need to have an overt, publicly available tax policy which says where they stand on issues such as tax avoidance and tax havens. That's a pretty basic requirement, and business can come to the fore on that. Secondly, tax transparency. Can a reasonably educated person look at the report and accounts and deduce from them whether tax is being paid and it's the right amount of tax in the right place at the right time? That means, without getting too technical, we need to look at things like deferred tax versus current tax and make sure it's legible. In many instances, some businesses confuse accidentally or deliberately the two, so it becomes actually impossible to understand what's being paid and where and when. And then that would also mean things such as, for a multinational, country-by-country reporting is absolutely required, and so fair tax mark businesses such as Lush, etc., SSE, the cooperative, Marshalls, they now start to provide a breakdown of their economic activity in all the markets they're in around the world. And then the last bit, and the crucial bit, is the actual tax paid. So there's tax policy, tax transparency, but we also avoid points for actually paying tax within what one would understand to be the expected tax rates. Beyond business, the main stakeholders that we need engaging in this area is obviously legislators, who are going to craft the tools within which ultimately everybody plays the game of business. Secondly is the people who implement that legislation, people such as HMRC, and they need to actually be adequately resourced in order to discharge those responsibilities. And they also need a signal from the top which says, we want you to do your job assertively, perhaps even aggressively, to make sure the tax is paid. And we think the NGOs and the business community need to come together to some space where we can agree, here's the discussion around changing the legislation, but here's the discussion around creating the ideal benchmarks about where we want it to go over a much more period of time.